All right, so buckle up because today we're taking a deep dive right into the heart of car customization with car vinyl wrapping in South Africa. Forget about those same old boring paint jobs. This is like next level car design.
Yeah, it really is. Think of it kind of like a temporary tattoo, but for your car. And instead of ink, it's like this thin, durable film that can completely like transform the whole look of your car. We're talking changing the color, the finish. You can go from matte to metallic. They even have like textured effects like carbon fiber.
It's amazing what they can do with it these days. And, we're working from the Notebook LM podcast episode, which you sent over. It sounds like a really cool podcast, by the way. But it seems like South Africa's really like leading the charge on this whole trend. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a few things. South Africa's, always had a really vibrant car culture, right? Like people there, they love their cars and they love personalizing them. Plus, you have to think about the climate there. It's intense, lots of sun, some rough roads. Vinyl wrapping just offers this really appealing layer of protection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you put it like that. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You get the style, A&D, the substance. Express yourself, but also protect your car from the elements at the same time.
I
I like it. But let's unpack this whole customization thing a bit more, okay? You mentioned a bunch of different finishes, textures. What are some of the wildest designs you've seen?
Oh man, I've seen some crazy stuff. We're talking like full-on murals on cars, optical illusions that make the car look dented, which sounds weird, but it can look really cool and artsy. And get this, glow-in-the-dark wraps. Can you imagine driving down the highway at night in South Africa with one of those?
Wow, glow in the dark. That's next level.
Yeah.
Talk about turning heads. That's incredible. But it's not just about individual style, is it? I've seen businesses catching on to this trend too.
Oh, absolutely. It's becoming a really popular way for businesses to kind of advertise on the go. Yeah, you see food trucks using wraps to show off their menus, real estate companies with like pictures of properties,
Yeah.
even like mobile pet groomers with these adorable dog designs on the side.
Oh, that's cute.
It's like marketing on the move.
And the best part is if they decide to rebrand, they just change the wrap.
Exactly.
You don't have to repaint the whole thing. That's smart. So it's kind of like having a giant customizable business card on wheels.
That's a great way to put it.
It's brilliant. But let's maybe shift gears a bit here. Talk about some of the practical advantages. We touched on paint protection earlier. How does that actually work?
So basically, that durable vinyl acts as a shield for your car's original paint.
Right.
It protects it from, minor scratches, UV damage from the sun, which is obviously a big one in South Africa,
Yeah.
and even like those little stone chips you get from driving on the highway.
Yeah, those are the worst.
And, while we're talking about protection, it's worth mentioning that car wrapping is actually considered much more environmentally friendly than repainting your car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the process uses less energy and it produces fewer harmful emissions.
Well, that's good to know. So it's good for your car and good for the environment. I'm guessing this also affects the resale value, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you wrap your car, you're essentially preserving the original paint underneath.
It's like a time capsule.
Right, exactly.
Wow.
So when you go to sell it, you just peel off the wrap and boom, good as new paint.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good to know. But let's be real. It can't all be, sunshine and rainbows, right? There have to be some downsides. What should people be aware of before they, dive headfirst into this whole car wrapping world?
Yeah, you're right. There are a few things to keep in mind. First of all, nothing lasts forever, right? And that includes vinyl wraps,
Right.
depending on the quality of the wrap, how well it's applied, and of course, how much sun exposure it gets. You're probably looking at a lifespan of, I'd say, about 3 to 7 years.
Okay, so not a bad run, but not exactly permanent either. And what about those automatic car washes? I feel like those can be pretty rough on a car's finish. Do they affect the wrap?
They can, yeah. The source we were looking at actually mentions that specifically. Those harsh brushes and chemicals they use in those automatic car washes, they can really shorten the lifespan of your wrap.
Oh, wow, good to know.
Yeah, if you're going to get a wrap, hand washing is definitely the way to go.
So it's an investment, but it requires a little bit of TLC.
Basically, yeah.
What about the cost?
Well, a good wrap, professionally done, it isn't cheap. You might be tempted to try to, cut corners and go for a cheaper option.
I could see that.
But honestly, that's probably going to cost you more in the long run.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen.
If you go too cheap, you might end up with a wrap that bubbles, peels, or just doesn't look good. It's really crucial to find a reputable installer.
Right, someone who uses high-quality materials and knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like finding a good mechanic or A trustworthy hairdresser, you know. You
Mhm.
want someone who knows what they're doing.
That's a great analogy, actually.
I like that. Now, speaking of finding a good installer, are there specific things people should look for, especially in South Africa?
Oh, absolutely. In South Africa, you have the South African Vehicle Wrapping Association, or SAVW for short.
Catchy.
Yeah, they have a directory of accredited installers on their website.
Okay, so it's like a stamp of approval.
Right. It basically means that these businesses have met certain standards and have the right qualifications.
That's really helpful to know. So SAVWA accreditation, definitely something to look out for. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the legalities for a minute. Is it even legal to fully wrap your car in South Africa? Or are there, like, restrictions?
It is legal to wrap your car in South Africa, but there is a bit of a catch if you're doing a full color change.
Okay, I knew there had to be a catch.
Yeah.
All right, spill the tea. What do we need to know?
It's not as complicated as it sounds. You just need to let the vehicle licensing department know about the color change.
Okay.
You have to fill out a simple form, give them the details about the new color, the wrap material, that sort of thing.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
It is. It's really just about keeping your vehicle details up to date.
So it's not like you need to get, like, special permission or anything, just a heads up to the authorities.
Right, exactly.
Now, I know some people listening are probably wondering about the original paint. Like, what does a wrap actually do to it long term?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Let's say you wrap your car, you drive it around for a few years, then you decide, you know what, I want to go back to the original color.
Right.
What are we looking at? Is the paint going to be damaged?
So in most cases, if the wrap is applied correctly and removed professionally, it shouldn't damage the original paint at all.
Okay, that's good to know.
But, and this is important, there's always a but, right?
There's always a catch.
Exactly. That South African sun, man. Even with a wrap, if your car's exposed to a lot of sun over time, it
Yeah.
can sometimes leave like a little bit of residue or some like faint marks on the original paint.
So it's not a completely foolproof system.
No, nothing is ever completely foolproof.
True, true.
But if you get a professional job done using high quality materials, it should minimize that risk significantly.
That makes sense. So really, it seems like the key takeaway here is do your research.
Absolutely.
Find a reputable installer who knows what they're doing.
100%.
Don't just go for the cheapest option.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
You want someone with experience who uses quality materials, ask for references, see examples of their work.
Yeah, like anything else, you get what you pay for.
Exactly.
All right, so we've talked about the practicalities, the legalities, even the environmental benefits. But I got to be honest, the thing that gets me most excited about car wrapping is the creativity.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The possibilities are pretty much endless.
They really are.
We talked about glow-in-the-dark wraps earlier. But I mean, there are some truly mind-blowing designs out there.
Tell me about it. I've seen some crazy stuff.
Like, what's the wildest thing you've seen?
Okay, so I saw this car recently. It had a wrap that made it look like it was covered in shimmering scales, like a mermaid's tail.
Whoa, that's amazing.
So cool.
I bet that turned heads on the streets of, like, Johannesburg.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you know, the best part is wraps are temporary.
Right.
So you can literally change your car's look as often as you change your mind.
That's a great way to put it. It's like having a whole wardrobe for your car.
Exactly.
I love that. And it's not just limited to cars, is it? We mentioned motorbikes and boats, but what about like those crazy taxi minibuses you see all over South Africa? Could you wrap one of those?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more and more of that, actually.
That would be awesome.
Can you imagine, like, a minibus transformed into a work of art, showcasing local artists or celebrating South African culture? The possibilities are truly endless.
Okay, now that is something I would love to see.
Right.
That would be incredible. Speaking of dream wraps, all this talk about car care has got me thinking. If I could wrap my car in anything, I think I'd go with a design inspired by the Big Five. You know, lions, elephants, rhinos,
Oh, wow.
all roaming across my car.
That is such a cool idea.
Right.
It would be like the ultimate safari vehicle
Exactly.
and a great way to show your love for South Africa and its wildlife.
It would be one of a kind, that's for sure.
Definitely.
But in all seriousness, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to this whole world of car wrapping. It's more than just a cosmetic upgrade.
It really is.
It's a way to express yourself, protect your car, even make a statement.
I completely agree.
It's a fascinating trend, and I have a feeling it's only going to get bigger and more creative in the years to come.
Oh, for sure.
Now, for our listeners who are maybe thinking about taking the plunge, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
I would say, don't be afraid to get creative. Let your imagination run wild.
I like that.
This is your chance to create something truly unique and personal. But remember what we talked about.
Yeah, you're right. Don't skimp on the research.
Hmm.
Finding the really good installer is key. It's an investment.
Absolutely. You want that perfect blend of, creativity and quality, but also expertise.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. This has been, I got to say, a really eye-opening deep dive. I'm already kind of picturing all the designs people are going to come up with. So to anyone listening, if you've transformed your vehicle, we want to hear about it.
Definitely share your car wrapping stories. Until next time, keep on diving deep.